We said it on our last episode. We had a special announcement for you. This is huge for us here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. To celebrate our 6-month anniversary, we are privileged to announce our partnership with Shudder. Shudder is the Netflix for horror. You can stream great thrillers, horror, and suspense for only $5.99 per month or $56.99 for the year. Shudder has the largest, fastest growing human-curated selection of thrilling and dangerous entertainment. And listeners, we have a special offer for you. Shudder is unexpected with new spine-tingling thrillers, shocking horrors, and edge-of-your-seat suspense added weekly. It's uncluttered, where you have unlimited access to stream ad-free on all your favorite devices, such as your iPhone, Xbox One, and your Google Chromecast. It's unparalleled with a unique collection of exclusive and original films and series, horror classics, and blockbuster hits, such as this week's episode. Get started streaming the best horror, thriller, and supernatural content. Me personally, Dan, I've enjoyed One Cut of the Dead, a Shudder exclusive, and 3 from Hell by Rob Zombie, which also features one of this week's actors, Richard Brake. Shudder's expertly curated collection includes the acclaimed Tigers Are Not Afraid, Revenge, and the Creepshow TV series, produced by Greg Nicotero and based on the famous films by George Romero. For you, our faithful listeners, we have a special offer, Shudder free for 30 days. Go to shudder.com, that's SHUDD. Of course it's double D, it's a horror movie. And use the promo code WWT. That's shudder.com, promo code WWT. And with that, onto the show.
Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and the greatest in film. I am your host for this evening, Dan Allen Movies, and I'm joined by the man with over 2,490 films on his watch list. Are you happy to hear that? It's back finally, Jackson. How are you today?
I'm happy, Dan. I'm ecstatic. I'm fantastic. And I've never been better. Dan, I can't believe it. It took us 31 episodes. It took us 6 months, but we are finally here. A Nick Cage film in long form.
I know, I can't... Nick Cage, I tell you what, this guy is an absolute legend. We were talking off air. I can't believe the amount of hits this guy has been in. Although, his last 5 to 10 years a little bit shaky, you could say. But
no one bats 1,000, Dan, but this bloke has that many credits on his IMDb and a true superstar, a true legend of the game. He may have transcended actor status. Is he an expressionist performer, an expressionist artist, just something outside the realm of film entirely? Well, we're going to discuss it today, because what are we going to get stuck into, Dan?
Mandy, available on Shudder. Of course, we thank them for sponsoring us for the rest of the year. Privilege for us to be partnered with them. Mandy, now this was 2018 this came out, didn't it, Jackson?
It was 2018 that this came out, but before we go back in time to 2018, let's quickly go through some of the news from this week, because, you know, despite there not being a whole lot going on in the world, and here in Melbourne, we might be stuck in lockdown for a few more weeks, that Tenet review has just been pushed back again.
I know, I was going to say, because I'm getting a lot of messages about the Tenet review. We can't see it. I'm desperate to see the film, but unfortunately, we're in lockdown here in Melbourne, so we just got to wait one more week, hopefully, or a couple more weeks, isn't it, Jackson?
That's exactly right, Dan. And you know what? We've mentioned the word nearly 3 times now. Let's get it out of the way so it doesn't return for the episode. What's that movie called again, Dan?
Tenet.
And can we hear it 2 more times so our listeners do not have to put up with this?
All right.
1 more. And with that, no more Nolan for the rest of the episode. Speaking of the COVID-19 pandemic, weren't there 2 big-name actors who may have announced they had it this week?
I couldn't believe that. The Rock and... who was the other one?
Maybe just my dream man. How could you forget?
Rob P came down with... Geez, we shouldn't be laughing, but... yeah, that was a bit random. Obviously, they're not following the rules. Is that safe to say or not?
I think that could be quite a bold claim.
Yeah, okay, I'll retract that.
Both Australia and America do have some restrictions in place, probably here in Melbourne, Victoria, a little more harsh than it would be across the US. But we wish both The Rock, his family, and Rob Pattinson and anyone associated them the speediest recovery.
Of course.
Obviously, this has put the Matt Reeves, the Batman, on halt, at least temporarily. So we wish them all the best.
I want that to get in production ASAP, baby. You know it.
And look, Dan, while that bad news may have graced us earlier on in the last week, we had one interesting reveal drop only several days here before we started recording. What did we get a new trailer for?
Oh, it was a fantastic trailer. Bond.
No Time to Die.
I can't wait for that movie. How's the epic purport? The only thing, look, I said I texted you and I said, look, the only thing I'm a little bit skeptical on is Rami Malek. I'm not fully convinced. Now, I said to you, he's playing a really extravagant villain here where it could get a little cheesy from what I'm seeing. And you said, well, that is Bond. That is a Bond villain. And
I think I proceeded to send you a compilation of every weird and wacky henchman and villain that there's been in the last 24, 25 movies. So, yeah, Dan Allen, I believe you might be wrong.
There was something about what I saw from him in the trailer that was a little bit on the nose. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. But, I could end up loving it. I tell you what, I'm pumped for that movie. There's no doubt about it. So,
for sure. And to hear that classic score throughout the entire trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, a Knives Out reunion, Daniel Craig, Ana de Armas. Sign me the fuck up!
She is hot property in more ways than one at the moment. She is, she's been in Blade Runner. She was in, what else? Knives Out, plenty of films she's popping up in. Was she in the Kenneth Branagh movie as well, or am I thinking of someone else?
I'll be thinking of someone else, but one other movie she had popped up in, which we could even be covering thanks to our new partnership deal with Shudder, that would be Eli Roth's Knock Knock, featuring Keanu Reeves.
I've seen that.
What a bizarre little project
it's a bizarre
that is.
film. She is in that. Oh my God. I tell you, that's a weird one to review because it is entertaining, but yeah, I mean, we can go into that another time. There's so many movies we can go through on Shudder. It's just a matter of us agreeing on which one, isn't it? But finally, today we agreed on one, and it was Mandy.
It was Mandy. Let's play a little from the film. Listeners, we're doing things a little bit different here this week. You are hearing cues, trailer music, quotes, everything played live. So no, we don't have some music from Starless by King Crimson or the trailer. Instead, we've got another classic Nick Cage bathroom breakdown.
Guys, we are doing this live now, so all the cues are me. I'm in
DJ Dan Allen.
I'm DJ Dan Allen here. Let's play the DJ.
Record scratch.
So, bear in mind that I may stuff up here. But anyway, Mandy Jackson.
You never make mistakes on this show. What are you talking about?
Never. Never done a bad review. All right, Mandy. I'm desperate to hear your thoughts about this film. Hit me with them.
Here goes. There's a lot here to unpack.
I'll sit back for the next 5 minutes if you want me to.
Dan Allen Movies. It was my turn, Marshall on Film, to recommend something for this week. And what a movie to launch the partnership with Shudder once I discovered it was on their service. Listeners, let me take you through the synopsis and let me know what you think. The Shadow Mountains, Pacific Northwest, 1983 AD. Outsiders Red Miller and Mandy Bloom lead a loving and peaceful existence when their pine-scented haven is savagely destroyed by a cult led by the sadistic Jeremiah Sand. Red is catapulted into a phantasmagoric...
You want the cue?
I want the cue. Phantasmagoric. That's a $5 word. Journey filled with bloody vengeance and laced with fire. Listeners, if you love your horror movies with Nick Cage, Cenobites, LSD, Jesus freaks, and a chainsaw duel, this is the film for you. A throwback to the kind of movies from the early 80s, maybe 1983, that you may not have seen, but had visualized in your mind reading the box reading the back of a VHS cover box. this is pretty much it. It's gory, it's ultra violent. It has some of the most gorgeous cinematography, which you could liken to a Nicholas Winding Refn film or even something like Blade Runner. And cinematically and thematically, it's tickling. There's a heck of a lot going on. Dan, I loved the heck out of this film. This was a great viewing experience. It's not going to appeal to everyone, which, is pretty much all the movies we cover here at the podcast, I should say. But for me, as a bit of a gore whore, bit of a gore hound, I loved it.
I texted you as soon as we loaded this one up, and the guitar riffs in the background, I was sold. I knew it was going to have a bit of metal, the vibes,
How cool was that classic credits roll just over the forest? Fresh out of like an 80s slasher.
So cool. I was just transported into this world, and the use of colors, the reds and the deep purples, and that cinematography.
All the primary colors.
I mean, it was just so enthralling. I was transported for these 2 hours, and we sort of had two films, didn't we? We had a revenge tale at the end, but at the start we learned more about Mandy and how what makes her tick. And I like the contrast there as well. But I tell you what, this score from Johan Johannesson, now he sadly passed away. I think we mentioned him before. He worked on Prisoners, and he's worked on some other titles as well.
Yeah, listen to some of these movies, Dan. You said it, Prisoners, which we have covered here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. The Theory of Everything.
Wow.
Sicario, another Villeneuve film. Mother, the Darren Aronofsky picture. And Arrival. And you know what, Dan?
Arrival.
Before tragically passing away, Johan Janssen had begun working on the music for a very different movie, Disney's Christopher Robin.
Wow,
Fancy going from Mandy to that.
So did you say Blade Runner then? Because I believe he was going to be working, because he was Denis Villeneuve's right-hand man for years.
Yeah.
Right? And then obviously he passed away, so now he's moved on. But that's where my love for his scores came in. And this one might be at the top of the list. This was unbelievable. The riffs, the synths, it felt so right for the world. And it was nothing that I'd heard in a long, long time. This music, you had to stand out for you, Jackson.
Absolutely. It's without actually having heavy metal and death metal. It had that vibe, that feel, that spirit. And get this, for such a rock and roll movie and a rock and roll score, Johan Janssen again tragically passed away. Most rock and roll death ever, a cocaine overdose.
Really?
Well, talk about going out in fire. Not only was that this film, that was him. What a legend.
He had a lot to give. Like, if you look at his catalog already, but no, I really enjoyed this film. This isn't one that you think I'd like, I don't think, Jackson, because
no, I'm actually shocked to say that to hear that you like it, because this is another movie made for cinephiles, made for movie nerds.
Correct.
Really, is made for film snobs. And you don't like The Lighthouse, but you like this.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you.
You are a hypocrite.
Maybe I am. Maybe I truly am. I feel like the reason I'm a bigger hypocrite, because this film can fall into the category of more style than substance for some people, I feel. For me, no.
It's an art film.
Yeah. Because there's a lot going on with cinematography and style and music, and a lot of slow... Did you notice the slow fades? A lot of them were used throughout. And
a lot of nods to earlier films, and not even just some 80s slashers. You know, we hear Crystal Lakes, fresh from Friday the 13th. We've even got a chainsaw duel from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And I said it, like the demon bikers we have in this, they're basically ripped straight from Clive Barker's Hellraiser. But there's even nods to Kubrick. Our director, Panos Cosmatos, who we'll go into a little bit later, the name Mandy is actually from Eyes Wide Shut. That's the name of the escort that Tom Cruise finds himself mixed up in Eyes Wide Shut. And that's a Kubrick film. You've been mentioning them a bit lately. So there's all these little subtle little nods and homages sprinkled throughout.
I was going to say, this has one of the most ever nods to pop culture I've seen in a while. Like, I could name 10, 20 even. They're everywhere. I love it. It seems silly, but like, I love the aspect of these black swans who are a bikie gang who are addicted to like
Black
LSD.
swans or the black skulls?
Black skulls. What did I just say?
I don't know, Dan, but I think you are one pathetic loser.
Black swans, black skulls. Cool name, by the way. Black swans. Anyway, it should make it a movie, don't you think?
Yeah, I reckon. I could see Natalie Portman in that role.
Far out. This bikie gang that are addicted to LSD. I mean, I don't want to go into spoilers just yet, but that scene when he goes and sees, you know what I'm talking about, right? And
yeah.
And he like, the funniest part about that whole thing is, minor spoiler, he sees some, is it cocaine or whatever, and he sniffs it. I cracked up laughing because
it's an inhumane amount of cocaine.
It's just so, you couldn't do that with anyone but Nick Cage. It was perfect.
It's one of those boxes you have to tick for a Nick Cage film. You know, if we're gonna do a batshit insane Cage film and let him out of his cage, he's got to be doing drugs at some point. If it's not that,
but there was
it's probably something like crack in Port of Call.
There was no lead up. There was nothing to hint that he was a drug addict, in my opinion. Do you think? It was so random. It was out of place. No.
Well, here's an initial thought, okay? When we get the credit roll, Dan, where we hear the story credits, producer, Elijah Wood pops up. We'll go into him a little bit later. We have that quick shot of Red Miller, Nicolas Cage, jumping in the helicopter. He's a lumberjack. He's got the chainsaw. He's chopping down a tree. And that's a nice bit of foreshadowing set up there. When he jumps in the helicopter, one of his colleagues hands him a knockoff beer, and Red Miller actually signals no and turns his back away from it. So maybe we're hinting at a past where there could have been some kind of addiction. It's hinted at that Red might be a war veteran. So maybe it is part of, there's those primal and carnal urges that he's trying to keep bottled up within himself. And the only way to unlock them is by hitting the bottle or hitting hard drugs.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I noticed that he was a bit of an alco, but I mean, that's
just a little bit. I think you might have played some of it from the scene before.
That's another staple for Nick, isn't it? He's got to have a bad past. He's got to be an alco, and he's got to have drugs. I also noticed that Mandy, the character of Mandy, had a scar on her face. So to me, that signified, well, she's definitely got a troubled past, whether she was beaten or something there. But they didn't really explore that all too much, did they?
No, and despite the lengthier running time, particularly for kind of like a cult genre picture, being an action horror, 2 hours seems quite long. I kind of enjoyed that it was more hinted at. And it made her have that kind of ethereal and mysterious quality, something that would allure other men. Mandy at times almost felt like a bit of a forest nymph. She was reading these sci-fi fantasy novels. They're living out here by Crystal Lake in some kind of cabin. And Andrea Riseborough, who I really enjoyed her performance, she wears it's a wig with really long flowing hair, and it kind of feels unnatural. So it just gave her this really off-kilter vibe.
Yeah, she looked like she was out of an A24 picture in this one. No,
did that mean you had to dock points?
If you see Andrea in real life, completely different. So the fact that she was able to get into this role so well, like, kudos. And I have to say, Nick Cage was, I wouldn't say phenomenal. He was really, really good in this. And so was the guy that played Jeremiah, Linus Roach.
Yeah, Linus Roach.
He was fantastic. Now, I couldn't believe, Jackson, that Nick Cage was actually the director here, Ramos. Is it Ramos?
Panos Cosmatos.
Panos, sorry. Ramos. Panos wanted Nick Cage for the role of Jeremiah, didn't he? The cult leader. This mysterious cult leader in this. But Nick said, no, I want the role of Red Miller. So a couple of weeks later, Panos, I think, just said, yeah, we're going to give him this role as Nick Cage. Like, I think that's what it boiled down to. Like, they apparently he was dead set on him playing Jeremiah, which I can understand, because at that time he had movies where he had the longer hair and that. But yeah, eventually he's gone on to play Red Miller, which was perfect casting. Because
imagine the kind of film we had if we had someone else in that leading role.
Yeah, it's unconventional Nick Cage, and that's what we want to see. It's bit of Cage rage. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, Cage Rage. And you know what? You've said it, Dan. Cage Rage is the name of this week's segment, which we'll go into a little bit later.
Oh, he's springing things on me, eh?
I know. Just like you sprung this Shutter partnership.
What is it? Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes!
Hey, I'm the director. You gotta
DJ Dan Allen Movies is going to bring hell upon us here in the live recording of this podcast.
No, seriously, yeah. Everyone involved here, especially Jeremiah in this, he was just so disturbing. And like when he took the robe off, he was fully nude, and just a lot of scenes where he just commanded the screen. I would say though, the biggest fault for me in this film is I think some of these dialogue sequences go on a little bit too long. They linger a little bit too much. In particularly some of his scenes where it's just like, I remember one scene, it was just a close-up shot of his head for about 5 minutes, it felt like, where he was giving this dialogue out. Did it need to be that long?
Is that the attempted indoctrination of Mandy by Jeremiah when she's been laced with the LSD and we have that giant wasp coming out? Are you referring to that shot?
I am. I'm referring to that shot. I mean, it's...
Of all shots.
Yeah. It's a tough one to explain, this movie, because it's so off the wall. It's so crazy, but that's what I love about it. But yeah, just some of these scenes maybe dragged on a little bit too long. Did you feel that, or is that just me?
Yeah, I said it before that the movie's very deliberately paced. You know what? The first time I watched this, I'd had quite a long week, and I was trying to watch this late at night, thinking I want a horror movie. I've heard this is going to be pretty balls to the wall. So for the podcast, let's watch it late at night. I was actually on the brink of falling asleep for the first 20, 25 minutes because it was so deliberately paced, and the actors were able to breathe and take their time. So for me, first time, I was like, all right, I've got to try this again tomorrow before we've recorded this podcast. And then, having slept, woken up feeling fresh, I was really able to enjoy it. And while, yes, again, can feel slow, maybe to, the less thoughtful moviegoers, for a cinephile, you're going to get a kick out of it. And Dan, that sequence in particular, where Jeremiah has commanded his cult to force feed Mandy a really crazy batch of LSD, I loved some of the trippy stuff that was done there with the film grain and all the different colors, Jeremiah's voice. And then we have Mandy's face being overlaid and morphing in and out of Jeremiah's. I felt that was brilliant. I haven't seen stuff like that, those kind of classic film techniques, in a more recent contemporary release in years.
Would you compare this work of Ramos...
Panos Cosmatos?
I just called him Ramos again. Maybe that needs to stick because... because I don't know. Panos, do you compare this work to Lynch at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got very similar things going on here with big, crazy thematic stuff, lots of different use of lights and shadows, and we're not quite sure that the view that we're getting is objective. It could be very subjective. Like some of those shots in that indoctrination sequence in particular are just from Mandy's point of view, and we don't know if what we're watching is really happening.
What I really picked up on was the first half of the film before we get those Mandy credits. And by the way, those 3 credits that come up.
The title cards?
The title cards,
The Shadow Mountains, Children of the New Dawn, which is the Manson cult led by Jeremiah. And then finally, the death metal logo for Mandy.
Yeah, I popped, you could say, for those. I love it.
And how's getting that title card at the 75-minute mark?
Yeah, I know. The font work there was cool as well. But I guess, would you say they're the 3 acts? I feel like the last one is a little bit longer. But
oh, for sure. But it kind of is the point.
The first 2 acts, let's say, I felt like it was more of a dream setup, more like a Lynch film. And then we went into full revenge. Slasher, violence, gore, and you needed that at that point. I feel like it was building up to it, and you needed that juxtaposition to...
It needed to be shocked and jarred and kind of shaken out of that. It was like you were in a trance watching, right?
Yeah, and that scene where he goes ballistic and...
Which one?
Exactly. There's a few. It's not really spoiling it because it's Nick Cage at his best, isn't it?
Absolutely. Reminds me of another movie. What, Vampire's Kiss?
Vampire's Kiss, yeah. And it's funny you say that because Panos said that was his favorite Cage film. That was the reason why he wanted him in this role, in this movie. So it's interesting you mentioned that movie. But yeah, I feel like that third act it just needed to be that violent gore just to let us loose a bit, let the audience get their sort of built up. I don't know. Did you feel that? That's just what I felt. I just felt it was a breath of fresh air, and it was so balls to the walls. It was so crazy, this action and violence. Like, we had a freaking chainsaw fight. I love that part. Like, I was like, I got up and started clapping. I was just me and the dog.
I know we had two characters, each wielding their giant phalluses, like something fresh out of an A24 film, fresh out of the lighthouse, and then they go to war. Like it was, and I'm so glad it came because all too often we see horror films where it builds, and we've said it before on the podcast, Dan. You in particular have said third act problems, they just don't quite pay off, or it takes a turn for the worst. Whereas here, it takes that leaps and bounds. To some other realm, some other dimension, and we're so thankful for it. Before we get into spoilers, you've been mentioning the director's name now and bungling it too, Panos Cosmatos. So this is his second feature film. He's an Italian-born, Greek-Canadian writer-director. Work that one out, try to say that 5 times fast. And he's actually the son of blockbuster director George P. Cosmatos, who's famous for having saved several troubled productions across his near 30-year career, tragically passed away in 2005, and most well-known for having directed Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Cobra, so 2 Sly Stallone films, as well as Tombstone, the mid-90s Western. Have you seen Tombstone?
I have. Wow, I didn't know that he was... I tell you what, when I saw some interviews from Panos, not Ramos, sorry, mate, you're a brilliant director. When I saw some interviews, he actually reminded me a bit of a George R. R. Martin. A bit quirky, and to come
a bit
up
like
with,
a Guillermo del Toro?
Yes, and not just looks-wise, like personality, like the way that they crafted these films, like the idea.
And how he carries himself?
Yeah, just like, to come up with something like this, you have to be a little bit wacky, let's be honest. You have to have some ideas floating that not many people do. So,
for sure.
So, and all for it. I'm all for it. But it makes me want to go back and watch Rainbow, that other movie that his
Beyond the
first
Black
film.
Rainbow.
Yeah.
You know, Dan, that first film that Panos Cosmatos directed, Beyond the Black Rainbow, he actually financed that film using the DVD residuals from Tombstone.
You're kidding. Wow.
I'm not kidding. And it's funny because Tombstone, the original director, was actually fired as that production got underway. George P. Cosmatos came on board, but ever since, it's been pretty hotly debated that Kurt Russell, the star, actually shot most of the movie.
Really?
So, yeah, really. So Mandy's release here in 2018, from 2010, his first film, Beyond the Black Rainbow, which was fairly polarizing. It's another drug-induced sci-fi horror experience. Had a mixed release when it came out, but later on, in the last couple of years, it's been looked back as one of the best sci-fis to come out from the 2010s. And that's up there in stiff competition with movies like Ex Machina, Under the Skin, and Arrival that we mentioned here before.
Which you need to see.
I need to see a lot of Denis Villeneuve films.
How did this do in the box office, Jackson? Because I'm guessing not very well. Nick Cage in 2018. It's an indie release. I know it made it to Sundance.
It did, Dan. So before we get into some of the box office returns and how this was released, it did debut at Sundance at the 2018 Film Festival. So it was screened in the midnight premieres section alongside movies like Never Going Back, Revenge, which is available as a Shudder original on their service, so please check that out with our promo code. And tell me if you haven't heard of this movie it premiered alongside, Dan. Ari Aster's Hereditary.
Yes! Ari Aster. What a legend.
2 from 2 for me, 1 from 2 for Dan.
1 from 2, definitely.
Also shown at Sundance in 2018 was Blind Spotting, featuring Daveed Diggs from Hamilton,
Yeah.
Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, which we've got to check out. It's been called by many as probably one of the best, if not the best, A24 film. Ethan Hawke's Blaze, and Boots Riley's Sorry to Bother You, which I watched for the first time a few weeks ago, and that was a belter.
Yeah, right. So that's to be invited to Sundance is a big deal, isn't it? Like you have to be. It has to be screened by some real cinephiles to get there. So that's already good sign.
For sure. And this had a lot of critical acclaim in 2018. We're not going to go through the ratings just yet, but Dan, you asked about how did this do at the box office?
Yeah.
So it had a very limited theatrical release. It wasn't put anywhere in the US in more than about 250 theaters, which considering the size of that country is quite small. It has been produced on a reported budget of about 6 million and brought in 1.4. But at the same time it was put in cinemas, it was also released on video on demand. And instantly, this movie, Mandy, is a cult classic. So I'm willing to wager it's gone on to profit quite a lot. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't know how it works with VOD and people picking it up, but you'd think I saw like there's a lot of critical acclaim, a lot of fans of this film, and that got me excited, and that's the reason we watched it on Shudder. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet this one did well, and hopefully he gets a bigger budget next time, and maybe it can come to theaters in a wider release. I'm pretty sure this did play here in Australia, but not many screenings. So thanks.
Yes, absolutely. I remember having the opportunity to see this last year, and I passed up on it, Dan. But if there was ever a film you want to see at the cinemas with a packed house, it's this. I mean, with some of the digital film grain that's been added to make it look like an 80s release, it's also been formatted to look like it was shot on 35mm in the old school Panavision anamorphic format. And with the visuals and how noisy and grungy and gritty it is, you want to have seen this on the big screen. So I'm disappointed to say that you and we missed out. If it's coming out again at one of the cult movie theaters here in Melbourne, we have to see Mandy. And so do you, listeners. Please go and see Mandy.
Yeah, it's... I really think, before we get into spoilers here, I really think you guys should check this movie out. It's not for everyone. That's 100% certain. Some of you may not like it. It can be a slow burn at times. And
super ultra violent.
Super ultra violent. Very, very violent. Some disturbing themes, some disturbing stuff goes on here. You know, it's a religious cult, for goodness sake, and there's freaking lizard men called the Black Skulls. That should tell you half of what's going on here. It's
given our podcast history with religious cults going back to Midsommar, you know what you're in for.
Well, it reminded me of a game called Far Cry 5. I don't know if you've heard of it, Jackson. But there was a religious leader in that game called Joseph, Father Joseph. Jeremiah, very much like him, where he's this... he puts himself on a pedestal like this sort of god.
He's a Charles Manson figure. He's from a failed band. We can pretty much say the Children of the New Dawn are the Manson family.
Who was in this movie? Was it Brother Swan? Was that his name? Is that why I'm calling it the Black Swans?
I believe so, yeah. Brother Swan was like the right-hand man.
Yeah, he was putting off even worse vibes, in my opinion. Don't you think?
You know who he reminded me of? I can't think of the character actor now, but he was in The Invitation, the guy from Fargo that we've spoken about before.
Yeah,
he had that same kind of, if you saw this guy on the street, you probably wouldn't look twice at him thinking he was a creepy character. Because he looks like he could be someone's dad or someone's uncle.
Yeah,
but
when you put him in a role, yeah. he's
very
get away
freaky.
from me. Get away from me, yeah. No, I agree. Very, very well casted, this movie. So, but yeah, I recommend you check this out ASAP on Shudder because it's just an exhilarating movie. It's so original. I love that The Lighthouse and Midsummer and all that were original, but this had just that extra level for me. It just had the violence, the gore that I love. It had a story, the revenge story pushing me through. It had these really mysterious characters. There was a lot going on here that got me in, even though it was slow at times. So I definitely recommend it. Jackson?
Oh, I've gushed about this movie enough for the last 20, 25 minutes here. I have to recommend it. Listeners, even if you're someone who might be a bit squeamish at some violence, you're still going to love the style on display here. With that, Dan, before we get into spoiler territory, who do we have to thank?
We have to thank our sponsor again, Shudder. They are the #1 streaming service. I want you to go and sign up right now with our promo code WWT at checkout. You'll get 30 days free on your subscription. 30-day free trial. You know, most of these subscription services, they do not give you that many days. Get in there now. Support them. They support us. It's the Netflix of horror, I call it, because You've got so many good movies on there. We reviewed Host just the other day. That's on here, exclusive to Shudder. You've got to check out Host. You've got to check out Mandy. There's It Follows, another great movie I want you to check out. There's just so many. There's even an interview series with our man Nolan and was it Ridley Scott, Jackson?
James Cameron's story of science fiction, which I've just got started.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to that. So there's just so much content on here, unparalleled, curated horrors, supernatural, thrillers, everything, no commercials, completely off the wall. Get in now. Shudder, SHUDDER, shudder.com, and use our promo code WWT. Forget 30-day free trial. And with that being said, Jackson, let's get into spoilers. Spoiler alert.
Wow, okay. So
where do we start?
Mandy gets burned to death. What, 40, 50 minutes in? Holy crap. Did you see that coming?
Oh, God.
Because where do we start? You said it.
I don't know where to start, man. I was
Let's
in
start with
shock.
that. Let's start with that.
There were so many moments where I was in shock and awe through this, and that was one of them. It came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't know anything going into this. I was completely blind. I did not know it was going to be a revenge story. So I loved that it went that path, and I knew Mandy was in for it because, you know, when she was at the grocery store, the petrol station, the gas station, as the Americans say.
Three attempts, but you got there.
I got there. She, you know, the older lady came in and she was so weird. She was just so creepy. She could have a movie to herself as well. She reminded me of the character out of, was it It Chapter 2? The older lady in that. You haven't seen it, have you? It 2. And we knew she was in for it, and Jeremiah had something for her. I don't know why. And then eventually
I believe Jeremiah might have had something for, you know, broken, vulnerable people. Yeah. There was something weird going on there. A bit of like even sexual fluidity, because many of the men in his cult had long flowing hair. And finally, in one of those last scenes of the movie with Nick Cage gripping Jeremiah by the head, he's down on his knees begging for his life.
I know.
Dan, were you thinking this line? Like, how creepy is this? I bet you were thinking it before it was said, and so was I. Jeremiah screaming out, "I'll suck your fucking dick."
And that's
how bizarre is that?
That is bizarre because I knew that he would do that. There was something weird about it, and that's when you know that they've captured the essence of this character.
Yeah, there's something bizarre. So even though we assume early on that this character's heterosexual, who really knows? But look, I'll let you get back to Mandy here at the gas station.
I think it was implied where, you know, when we first see Jeremiah laying down, just the fact that he's laying down, and then by the end, once he's talked to Brother Swan, and the other woman, then the younger woman comes in, and I believe her name is Lucy, Lucy, and we pan away. So obviously, to me, she was doing sexual favors for him. That's what I got out of that scene. And then later on, we get him naked, his dick out with Mandy.
Oh God, what a dick shot! We've had one too many dick shots here at the podcast. That's for sure.
Oh no, please, guys, I need a break.
If it's not Midsommar, if it's not the Lighthouse, it's here.
I know. And then, so it was hinted at. So maybe that's why the payoff was there at the end. But yeah, the burning. I mean, him screaming and the use of audio there, where you don't hear him screaming, you just see him, and the slow mo and the acting there, really powerful stuff. Like, you got to give Nick Cage some props.
Like the barbed wire through his mouth and against the fence. It was like something out of a French horror movie. Just awful stuff. And
just the reactions from some of the guys in the cold, and the music playing. It built up to this moment, and it was so there was a climax there, I felt, but we're only halfway through. So I'm like, okay, how are they going to get me back in here? Because I need a breath of fresh air. Like, that was so full on. And I think that's when I texted you. I paused it and said, what did I say? I said, I'm in shock and awe.
You said you're in shock and awe.
That's what I just said. And you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. You're nearly there.
I said, come back in 10 minutes, knowing that you're about to hit that point with your title card and have your bathroom breakdown.
I never came back because I was too into it.
You were hooked.
I was hooked. Yeah, the revenge. But Yeah, I love how they took a little bit of a breath there, and then straight after that, well, how long after that did we get the breakdown from Cage in the bathroom?
Mere
Like
minutes.
the one-er.
But before we did, how was the goblin? Was it the cheddar goblin? The goblin cheddar? I think it was the cheddar goblin.
What was that
TV.
about? And he was just watching the ad. I didn't quite get the meaning of that.
Did you think that was a real advertisement?
Yeah, I did. It
Yeah,
wasn't?
how authentic was that? It wasn't. So it was actually produced especially for the movie. It was directed by Chris Kelly, who gifted the world the Adult Swim short film Too Many Cooks. Do you
And-
remember Too Many Cooks?
Was that? No, I don't. But was that? Did the credits play? No, I'm thinking of another movie, so I'm getting confused here. But yeah,
And get this, Dan. Cheddar Goblin is or Goblin Cheddar, I should say. I can't quite remember. It's actually the Twitter handle for this movie on Twitter.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, so that's fully produced ad just for this. I love when that
Just for
reminds
this.
me of a Tarantino act, where he did all that for Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
There's something about that that's just really cool. But yeah, no, I that one with Nick Cage, I mean, that was just phenomenal. Like you look back and you have a laugh about it because it's a Rage Cage at his finest. It's crazy, unhinged Cage. No, not Russell Crowe. And it's just, I love oneers. And this was one of the best, wasn't it? I love how
It was the perfect scene to break all the rules of the movie because it was one of the only shots that didn't have intense shadows and intense primary colors and not much blood. And it was kind of like that, that maybe it was shot first, maybe it was shot last, but it's like we could feel on set that they knew, okay, this is going to be the Nick Cage sequence in the film. This is where if we haven't got the audience hooked just yet, they're going to be in here from this point on. And for the character, for Red, he was so grief-stricken, so broken down that getting into that bottle, that was the only way that he was going to continue, or really I should say start, this path of destruction.
It is a cliche. It's been done 100 times, but the fact that they did a one here really helped because you just, it's like a play.
And he's in his underwear.
Yeah, okay.
We've got to point out how ridiculous it is.
It is. It's ridiculous. It's in a bathroom. It's a one-er, and it's like a play where he's just on the stage, and you're just watching him for a couple of minutes here do his thing, and that's when Nick Cage is at his best. I think when you just let him go and give him faith, and you know what I mean.
Do you agree with this criticism that it could almost be too much? I mean,
yeah, probably.
Prior to the internet taking advantage of his fandom, I mean, this goes back to the 90s, but Nick Cage as a meme has been massive for quite some time. And if there's any of those shots in this film, it's definitely that one-er. It sounds like for you, and definitely for me, that it wasn't too much, but there are some audiences that might think, okay, this has probably jumped the shark a bit.
When I refer to a one-er, by the way, for those who don't know, it's just one continuous shot is what we're
one man, well, and a one-man show as well.
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, in my opinion, not necessarily. Like a one-er. You remember Extraction, the one-er in that? Like that's not.
Oh yeah.
That's like
which isn't really a one-er.
It's not really a one-er. It's a 7-minute one-er that's crafted like a one-er, but it's not really. Anyway, we're getting.
Or maybe a Roger Deakins movie you might have heard of. Came out in 2019.
Yeah, 1917 was it?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's again a one-er, but not really. So this is a. How many times can we say one-er? It's going to be a new.
Gonna be a new cue.
It's going to be a new cue. But yeah, no, he. I just thought that was the perfect, because if you didn't do it that way and you had cuts, wouldn't have felt as authentic. I don't think.
No, definitely not. And then straight after this bathroom breakdown, who does Nick Cage go and visit but a man who had his own credit in the opening, Mr. Bill Duke.
In the caravan.
In the caravan.
And he goes and gets his weapons. I love that scene. The whole thing.
How good was that?
I just loved it.
Bill Duke, right? So he gets his own credit as Carruthers. What a memorable character actor this guy is. Do you remember him having starred alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando and Predator?
Oh, of course I do.
So
how could you not?
He's been alongside some of the biggest action heroes ever.
Too. He was
there you
in
go.
X-Men, yeah.
A quintessential 80s action actor. And if anyone is going to be dishing out bone-breaking arrows that he's crafted and stashing Red's crossbow, the Reaper, it has to be Mr. Bill Duke. And he gives a big exposition dump about what's to come.
Yeah. I was going to
say,
say,
what, Dan? I'm not complaining.
I'm not complaining because I wanted to learn more about the cult and about these mysterious lizard men that I call them, the Black Skulls, and just I love the world of it. Like I want to see a TV show of this. I want to see this explored in a sequel. It won't happen.
I'm so glad that we got 2 hours.
Yeah, because it's just. There was also some like I drew a comparison. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Mad Max. What do you think?
I don't believe you're wrong at all because Road War.
You love me.
Whoops, the wrong line.
Can we get the Curb Your Enthusiasm music for that? DJ Dan Allen Movies has really lost the plot. That's 4 in a row. My goodness. I think this live stream might have to die.
Hey, Jackson.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Oh, Jackson.
All right.
We lost it.
So, Road Warrior, another iconic 80s action movie. And I mentioned it before, Hellraiser, the Cenobites. We've got them looking like Pinhead, but you're bang on, mate. Mad Max for sure.
Yeah. So, and besides the world, like, it was just, even though, like, the cinematography and the there's a lot of red here. Like, let's be honest, there's a lot, like, I'm seeing red still. A lot of deep purple, these really, I don't even, like, lens flares? What do you call it? Like,
I believe it's like a trademark of Panos Cosmatos, and I think he calls them like panaflares, where it's just lots of things kind of, it's almost like they're shining through the frame, but you think lens flares, you think J.J. Abrams. Dan, I found something interesting. You know, this was shot on the Arri Alexa camera, which is a favorite of your man, Roger Deakins.
Wow.
This is the same camera that has been used to film such Deakins movies like Blade Runner 2049, 1917, movies won for Academy Awards, and here it's made to look like total crap with all the film grain.
I
but
know,
think
that's what I'm saying, because you would never know. This could be the lowest of low cameras. It's so funny that that's an Arri, because you don't think of beautiful cinematography in this. You think beautiful imagery.
Well, maybe not going in how we've described it, being like an action horror with blood and guts and sex and all this crazy stuff happening, but it is a beautiful movie aesthetically. It reminds you of a Blade Runner.
I wouldn't say beautiful. I would say like visceral, or I'd have another word for it. It was. I wouldn't say it was pretty to look at. I just think it was
you're
unique. Wrong. Yeah, okay.
I disagree, Gary.
Yeah, it's a tough one to say, but I liked it. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's unique. It fit the world. It was needed. Because if this was just a normal stock standard look to the film, it just wouldn't have had the same. It would not have had the same feeling at all. You cut away that and you cut away the music, you got a completely different movie here. That's why I say all these elements play a part in this film. Now, where I get the comparison to Lighthouse, where the Lighthouse did the same thing. Fantastic cinematography. Fantastic aspect ratio, costume design, everything. It just didn't have the substance to it, in my opinion, or the story. This had the story. It gripped me in.
Okay.
I was on the ride with Nick. As I said, I loved when we got to see Bill Duke's, what was his character's name?
Caruthers.
Caruthers. Just every beat to the story had me along the ride. And then we got to that chainsaw sequence. I actually... Oh, hold on. Let me go back up.
Yeah, come on. Hit that rewind button, because we want to go back here.
Well, I don't have a rewind button, but I have this. So
the record scratch will do us. Thank you.
The scene where he goes in and he sees this black skull looking at porn. Can you explain
hang
this
on,
scene?
Dan.
Oh,
can we get the lead up to this? You've gone too far.
Okay.
So, Nick Cage, he learns where the black skulls supposedly are holed up. As Caruthers tells him, there's some crazy bikers that have had a bad batch of LSD, or a very special batch. They've been in a drug-induced psychosis ever since. And it's a bit of foreshadowing for what's going to happen to Nick Cage's Red Miller. He's got the crossbow. He's there on the side of the road. He hits one. The guy goes down. He thinks, all right, I've got him. He drives up in the pickup truck. He's going to run him down. Bang! He might have hit the bike, springs out. Look, there's a lot of otherworldly and unreal, inhuman stuff going on in this movie.
What happened there? He hit him and the car like fully flipped.
Yeah.
Is it like they're super weighty? Is that what was it trying to say?
I don't know about super weighty. How I believe, and tell me if I'm reading into this or not. I probably am, but because these demon bikers have kind of transcended what it is to be human, that you have to be on their level, you have to be fighting in their plane, you just have to be as twisted and sadistic as them to take them down. And Nick Cage, despite having this fire and this tiger, you might say, rising and be ready to break out from inside of him, he's not there just yet, but he will be in a few minutes to come. So anyway, the pickup truck flips off the side of the road. We black out. Nick Cage, Red Miller, he's chained up. He's stuck in the biker hideout. He's going to be abused. He's cuffed to a bit of pipe. He ends up breaking his way out. And after taking out one demon biker with a pipe, or maybe take him out permanently, we're not quite sure, he moves onto the couch. You said it, Dan. There's some classic 70s porn playing on the TV just so we get something else grotesque and disgusting.
Yeah, what was the reason for that?
Well, we have the demon biker who we believe is passed out on the couch. He gets up. This demon biker has a sword or a knife for a dick. So we've got more phallic symbols in this film.
Oh, fuck.
He goes to war with Red. He tackles Red to the ground, and just as the porn is playing on the TV, he's trying to fuck Red with the blade. It's brilliant. This is like the 90-minute mark, and we're like, holy shit, there's still half an hour of this crazy, insane stuff to go.
This is where I draw comparisons to George R. R. Martin. They're both effed in the head. That's what I was trying to say. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, in the nicest way possible. Because you're not a normal person coming up with this. But it was entertaining. It was entertaining.
And this is like the B plot to the A plot going on with Jeremiah, which is just even more crazy and insane stuff. After Red Miller breaks out of that, you said before, Dan, he takes a giant, unreal snort of cocaine that he doesn't even flinch at.
Can you tell me, I just want to know, did you laugh when he did that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You cannot help but laugh. This movie has, like, it's not totally humorless. It's got some really good jokes kind of sprinkled throughout, pretty much all at the expense of our leading man, Mr. Nicolas Cage. And then after that, he then decides to go and take a swab of the biker grease. Like, how
it was
disgusting.
so ridiculous, man. He's like, oh yeah, a jar of this grey shit. I'm going to take this is really enticing. Let me take a sip. Like,
and he's instantly, from that point, pupils dilated, tripping major balls. And then we get some of these cartoon sequences, like something from the 1981 animated heavy metal movie. It's just absolutely balls fucking nuts, and I love it.
But why was...
At that point, were you like, Jackson, love this film?
Yeah. Oh, before then. But then that cemented it. That just cemented it. A lizard man with a dick. That was all it needed. Can you tell me why was he looking at porn, though? This lizard guy, was he trying to learn what the humans were doing? Or...
Still human. I believe that the demon bikers just consistently tripping balls on this crazy batch of LSD, they had given in to something primal and something carnal. I mentioned this in the Lighthouse episode, that movie, you're kind of battling with what it is to be human and human nature and releasing something buried within. These guys were living they were living just totally hedonistically. They had totally given into pleasure. And Bill Duke says that when Bill Duke, Caruthers, tells Red about these demon bikers, what's to come, he said, you know what the effed up part about this is, about these guys is? Loving pain. He's like, they fucking love it. So it's just another nod to Hellraiser, really.
I got to go back and watch Hellraiser. There's a lot of nods to that movie in this.
There's a lot of nods to everything 80s. Yeah. It's so good.
Did you... What did you think of the chainsaw fight? I mean, did you pop off like me? Pop off sounds the wrong word.
I think you are popping off in this movie.
Get excited is what I'm trying to say. Did you?
Oh, 110%.
Yeah.
You know, one of the opening shots with Nick Cage chopping down a tree, we knew from that point that chainsaw has to come back. We have to see it again. And poor Red Miller can't get the chainsaw started. He's taking on this other goon from the Children of the New Dawn who brings out the biggest tree lopping chainsaw you've ever seen. He's holding it right over his crotch as they go into battle.
Yeah.
Dan, I can't believe it. You've gone on about this chainsaw, but we've missed Red Miller forging an axe.
Oh my God, the axe! That was
He forged an
unbelievable.
axe. What the hell? Like, what a movie!
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's just so crazy. I love the axe. That was epic. That was.
And how's Red taking out
what
Brother
yeah.
Swan?
That was hard to watch.
And he's put it into his throat. He's basically face fucking Brother Swan. It's just brilliant.
And what else did he? Oh, what about the shot where he throws it, and you just get this wide shot, and it's just swinging into his head.
Oh, and it gets the creepy blonde goon. Brilliant.
I laughed.
Yeah.
Seriously,
you have to.
It was
it's
just
hilarious.
so crazy. It was just so crazy. So, all these moments just make for an unreal time. Like they really do.
And it's also psychedelic. It knows just how silly it is. It's brilliant.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, does it?
No, definitely not.
There's even a couple of quotes that I remember, like "You're a vicious snowflake" was one of them that sprung to mind. Some from Jeremiah. There's a lot here for a rewatch as well.
Yeah.
Like especially it just I can't say enough good things really. Jackson, there's another scene. So he finally takes out, I think it was the guy with the chainsaw. He rips his head off. Oh, what's the scene where he pulls him into the
demon
chainsaw?
biker where he lights the cigarette?
He lights the cigarette. That's another Nick Cage tick the box. He's got to smoke at some point with a ciggy, and he lights it with the demon.
with the decapitated head. Just absolute brilliance. And from this point, Nick Cage has taken every drug under the sun. He's drunk out of his mind. It's just, we don't know how long this has been going on for. He could be out there for weeks hunting in the bush, and everyone's tripping balls. I love by the end of the film that everyone's pupils are dilated. Like none of what's going on here is within the realm of reality. It's just all so mystical and ridiculous. We've gushed about this film so much. I can't believe it.
Let's hear about some of the ratings, Jackson.
Jackson's ratings.
IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score, and Letterboxd.
IMDb, Dan. 6.5 out of 10 from just shy of 60,000 user ratings, or 59,799 to be exact.
Yeah,
6.5 out of 10. That's pretty low, right?
It's low, but I can see why. I mean, I'm not going to hold it against anyone. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few of those casual or average moviegoers who wanted to shut this off half hour in because, it can be a bit slow.
Oh, well, yeah, I wouldn't say that. Casual goers are gone here. I don't think they're making it through.
I want you to throw a tomato at the wall. What's the Rotten Tomatoes critic score?
50, 60?
91% of critics gave it a positive review, an average rating of 7.63 out of 10 from 243 critic reviews.
Wow, that's a lot of reviews. No, that's good. Good to see.
On the flip side, yes, this has been polarizing. An audience score of 66%, meaning 66% of ratings gathered from general users on that site had it at more than 3.5 stars. Average rating blends in 3.52 out of 5 from just over 4,200 ratings, or 4,222. So very mixed, just like IMDb, but that's all right. We'll keep things moving. Metacritic, Dan, 30 critic reviews collated. It's a must-see with 81 out of 100. However,
81?
just 6.9 user score from 231 ratings. So
That's
critics, cinephiles, movie snobs, film nerds, they love this film, but others not so much. Here we go. Letterboxd, 3.6 out of 5. It's been logged by close to 107,000 members and liked by almost 34,000. But 3.6 out of 5, will we call that a win, Dan Allen Movies?
I think that's a little low for Letterboxd over there. A lot of film snubs. Maybe it was a little bit too balls to the wall for them.
Yeah, probably too violent and maybe too silly, but for you and myself, we love it.
Not enough deeper meaning for them, you know. We need to go to the lighthouse and talk about our... Anyway, go.
You describe this as very Lynchian, Lovecraftian, so there's still more to dissect here. Dan, someone's name who popped up in the producer credits early on, were you a bit surprised to see this?
Elijah Wood?
Former Hobbit? Yeah!
Yeah! What? And I know that him and Nick Cage have worked together, and he has produced a few of his films, so maybe there's a relationship there.
There's a relationship here. So Elijah Wood, along with directors Daniel Noah and Josh C. Walker, the three of them, the former Hobbit, they've actually formed a production company known as Spectavision. And so far, they've focused on genre pictures and horror movies. Standing out amongst their filmography, the techno thriller Open Windows, starring Elijah Wood and also Sasha Grey. The off-kilter horror comedy, The Greasy Strangler, which has some very interesting reviews. You might have also heard of this, Daniel Isn't Real, another kind of psychoactive thriller starring Patrick Schwarzenegger. Yes, the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's the same age as yourself and me, Dan. He is an actor.
Oh, we need to get him on the pod.
We need to get him on the pod.
Paddy Schwartzy. Get on, mate.
Paddy Schwartzy. So, the relationship between Elijah Wood and Nick Cage.
Hey, Jack Jackson, sorry to cut you off. It's either
all yours.
It's either Patrick Schwarzenegger or Patrick's Margaretti.
Antonio Margaretti. Margaretti.
Had to get that one in.
This DJ better not be back next week. So this is actually the second in like a weird kind of cosmic horror collaboration, because Nick Cage also starred in a movie that I've mentioned several times here at the podcast, and that was Richard Stanley's return to form, Color Out of Space. That came out in the last 12 months.
Very polarizing
you've got to go
movie.
see it.
Yeah.
And you know what, Dan? Where is the third film in this caged up horror trilogy? Elijah Wood, make it happen. He produced that movie too.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah, I saw a trailer for Color Out of Space is the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like another Cage unhinged, quirky film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I want to highly recommend it. In fact, Dan, if you go back to our first ever episode, The Way Back, I'm pretty sure I gave that as a recommendation. Dan, for our third film in the caged up cosmic trilogy, maybe you and I should write it. Are you feeling like a slow sci-fi in space? I know you watched a good one just recently.
Oh, no. No, we don't need to relive High Life ever again. Please. No. Yeah. I just to wrap up here, Jackson, I just think this film, it's not... I feel like it's a little bit more accessible than, let's say, a Lighthouse or a Midsummer for the general goers.
Really?
But I think a lot of them are going to turn it off. So just be wary, guys, if you do not have if you're a little bit susceptible to, let's say, strong violence.
If you got a weak stomach.
Yeah, this might not be for you, but for everyone else, if you're just looking for a good time and a little bit of an acid trip in the theater, in your home theater, then this is the place to go. Shudder.com, 30 days free with WWT, and you're laughing. I just think you're going to have a great time.
Absolutely, Dan.
Psychedelic experience, I'm going to call it.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, for you and I here in Melbourne, Victoria, we can't be taking acid somewhere and getting lost in the forest ourselves, but we could be getting lost in this movie. Look, I've got some other notes here about Mr. Sir Nicolas Cage, but let's get into them another time when we cover one of his other films. It's going to happen in the next 400, 500, 600 episodes.
Look, we're going to cover this guy. We're going to cover this guy extensively, so keep those notes, Jackson, because, I mean, I tell you what, he's going to go down as a classic. If he isn't already, like, he's an Oscar winner. He's won every award under the sun. He's got some absolute belter films, and he's got some absolute stinkers. But that's why we love him. You know, that's why we love him. Unfortunately, over the last
he gives 110.
Last few years, some real stinkers have come out. So hopefully he can. We always get that little gem. He's very entertaining. That's what I'm saying.
Highly entertaining.
Before we go into ratings, do you have him on top of John Travolta?
What, those two warring it out? Who's better? I don't know, Dan. We might have to discuss a movie where that takes place to decide.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they need to face off. Would you say?
Our DJ probably should play a cue here. There it is. Thank you very much.
You got to trust me. You got to trust me. I had it coming.
Let's move into our final ratings. Dan, let's do things a bit different. How about I kick us off here? You said it. I love this film. You knew I'd love this film. I knew I'd love this film about 75 minutes in when we get that third title card.
I want to say after 32 episodes, I know when you're going to like a film now. And I think you're the same for me. I think we're on the same wavelength now where I think we can sort of predict. So that's why when you gave me High Life, you're just an arsehole. But anyway, take it away.
Speaking of 32 episodes, weren't we doing Bill and Ted this week?
Oh, of course. Bill and Ted is coming, guys. That's all I'm going to say.
If you've stuck around nearly 75 minutes into this episode and you're still waiting for Bill and Ted, I'm sorry, it wasn't in the headline. It's just not coming this week. It had to be Mandy. It had to be Mandy. Look, if you like your movies grotesque, full of visual fetishes, you like the mystical, you don't have any clue what's going on, and you just want to get lost in something for 121 minutes, you're going to enjoy Mandy, and you're going to give it the same rating I did, which is, drumroll please, 9 out of 10 bad batches of LSD.
Good stuff, Jackson. I am going to give Mandy an 8 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed it. A psychedelic experience that I think every cinephile out there should definitely check out ASAP. You know, put this near the top of your watch list. And it's Nick Cage. Could you say it his best? It's up there. It's in the top 10.
Absolutely. It might not have been Academy Award nominated like some of his other roles where he won in Leaving Las Vegas or Adaptation or Matchstick Men, but it's a totally different kind of role, so we're not surprised.
The guy's got like 100 credits. This is in his top 10. So if you're a fan of him, this is one you got to check out. So 8 out of 10 from me, 9 from Jackson. That's going to come in at 17 out of 20.
Or an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5.
Which is a very strong review. Let's be honest.
This could almost be in our top 10 for the episode, so that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think this is going to sneak into the top 10. So that is it. Mandy review, 8 out of 10. Jackson, before we head off, why don't we do our little segment that you were talking about earlier?
Absolutely, Dan. We are going to get into that raged, in a cage, caged up, unlock the cage, let that tiger out with our Nick Cage recommendations. Before we do, Dan, let's take one more moment to thank today's episode partner, and that's Shudder. With Shudder, you can stream great thrillers, horror, and suspense for $5.99 a month or $56.99 for the year. They've got the largest, fastest growing human-curated selection of thrilling and dangerous entertainment. Shudder truly are the Netflix for horror. Listeners, if you want to get started, you want to be downloading Shudder, and you want to be going to shudder.com using the promo code WWT, that's SHUDD, it's a horror movie, of course it's double D, ER.com, promo code WWT for your 30-day free trial.
Beautiful, Jackson. Now, Nick Cage segment. Talk to me.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to hear your Nick Cage recommendations. 3 films our listeners should check out in the coming week.
He's got a few.
He's got a few.
You know what springs to mind? Ghost Rider.
Hey!
I don't know why.
Well, this is like a psychedelic Ghost Rider.
I'm not going to mention. So the first one for me is going to be Snake Eyes. If you like Mandy, I think you're really going to like Snake Eyes. It's an absolute classic. So that's number 1. Okay. Number 2, we said it earlier, Face Off. I mean, I would say that's his best film, if you ask me. Nick Cage v. John Travolta. It's an absolute classic. I know, Jackson, you had a little game. What did you do? You had a drink off?
I hosted a movie drinking game, watching this live on a streaming service I'm not going to mention. Yeah, and that was a heck of a lot of fun.
Wow, yeah. I wouldn't want to be involved in that because that would have
a
been...
few faces were off.
Did you have a sore morning that morning?
Oh, maybe. And give us one more recommendation here, Dan.
I want to say Next, and I know it's not a good film in any means, but I've got a hidden sort of love for it.
Okay. It's like a soft spot in your heart?
No, I wouldn't say soft spot. I remember walking out of the cinema in that movie. When did it come out? I must have been 12. Seriously.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I
think
was
it
young.
was like 2009 or something.
So I haven't seen it since then. So bear that in mind. So I was like 13. But when it came out, I walked out of the theater. I'm like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. I don't know why I had that feeling, but I just loved it as a kid. So I haven't seen it since. I sort of don't want to because I'll probably think it's shit. So probably that. What else have we got? I mean,
Hey, that's your three.
That's
your
three.
three.
Okay. I'll shut
That's
up.
your three. That's it. Thank you very much for scrolling Nick Cage's IMDb as you read those out too. Dan, I'm going to give you 3 recommendations. First off,
My memory's
how
shit.
could I be remiss to mention a David Lynch film starring Nicolas Cage? Bet you hadn't heard of this one, Wild at Heart. Think Nick Cage playing a James Dean, Elvis Presley type. Another unhinged, uncaged
Was that where he won the Oscar?
He did not. He won for Leaving Las Vegas, which, while it's not my recommendations, go check it out. Another dark, alcoholic performance. Matchstick Men, directed by Ridley Scott, which was a nominated performance for Mr. Nick Cage. He plays a con artist with OCD.
Hold on. Did
Also
you mention,
has a good performance from Sam Rockwell.
Did you say David Lynch?
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Get real.
Get real. Yeah, go on, Jackson.
Oh,
Sorry.
God, these DJ cues this week, people.
I'm sorry.
Listeners, let us know if you want them to return. I sure do. Finally, the third film I'm going to recommend, and this ties in nicely to something we've got coming for you listeners, a Charlie Kaufman written film directed by Spike Jonze, Adaptation, with Nick Cage in dual roles playing Charlie
Nice.
and Donald Kaufman.
Nice, yeah. That's a good choice. Actually, I might say that now instead of next. Can I take it?
You can't take it back. Listeners, there's 6 movies. So there we have for
Hey,
you.
you know what I'm
Snake
gonna-
Eyes. Yeah?
What about the exotic, what is it? The Tiger King project that's been announced.
You're going to recommend something that isn't even out yet.
Nah, stuff that. No. Mandy. Number 1, Mandy, shutter.com. All right, Jackson, I think we're done for today's episode. Did you have fun?
Oh, this was a blast. I can't believe we spoke almost as long as the movie about Mandy. This is nuts. You're lost for words. You're in shock and awe again.
I really enjoyed the movie, so it was good to chat with you. And there was just so much to talk about, like so many crazy moments. It's a really good one to review. So we will have that Bill and Ted review out next week, guys. So make sure you stay tuned for that, as well as a couple of other reviews, aren't we, Jackson?
Absolutely. We've got some stuff coming on the new Charlie Kaufman film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Maybe Mulan. Ooh, that could be coming soon. Dan, where can our listeners find us?
You can find me at Dan Allen Movies on Twitter, on Instagram, on Letterboxd. You can find Jackson, Marshall on Film with an underscore, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Where can you find the podcast, Jackson?
Listeners, you can find us, the We Watch This Movie podcast, at We Watch This Podcast on Instagram, on Letterboxd, on Twitter, on Facebook, even on TikTok. You can find Shutter at shutter.com with that promo code WWT for 30 days free. With that, we want to thank you again for joining us. 31 main episodes so far, 3 minisodes in the can. Thank you all so much for sticking around. He is Dan Allen Movies. I am Matt Marshall on Film, and we
Are out of time. Thanks for tuning in.